Special education parents and teachers, if you're feeling burnt out, this episode is for you. Welcome to the Special Education Inner Circle podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Witcher, founder of Master IP Coach Mentorship Programs. And I'm, seeing it. I'm seeing it around with parents, teachers, admins, and therapists, all of the burnout, all of the never again, or I just counting those days to the end of the school year, which of course is normal, but there's like the normal, like, okay, I'm tired. And there's the, okay, this was so exhausting that I have to remember to never do this again in this way. And we're making decisions all the time in special education about how we're going to serve students, children who need special education services. Ideal law says that we have to provide this free and appropriate public education to meet their unique needs, to prepare a child for further education, employment, and independent living. And that takes a lot of moving parts. But what I've seen over the last 25 years, a lot of times, is that IEPs are built in a way where they are not sustainable. They're not sustainable for the providers. It's not sustainable for the child. And it looks like complete and just overwhelming burnout at the end of the year for everyone who is involved with this kind of IEP, the kind of IEP that is not sustainable. The kind of IEP that, there's no way that you could work on all of the goals all the time. I want you to think back to like the new year. I don't know if you set goals or resolutions, or you're like, this is a fresh start. And you're like, okay, I'm going to do all of these things. And you don't make it very far because you've put too many things on your plate. You didn't get super focused on what the needle movers are going to be. So you give up on those things by, mid-January. Maybe if you're lucky, you make it to February. Or maybe you're the one who, it doesn't have to be the new year. You're like, I'm going on a new meal plan. This is how I'm going to eat. This is what I'm going to do. This is how, my life is going to be. For me, sometimes I would go through these phases as a mom. As many of you know, I was a single mom for like, probably about 10 years. Okay. And I would go through phases where I'm like, I'm going to meal prep. Like, I'm going to do this. And I'd set up this whole plan to make this happen. I'm not a meal prepper. Like, I just had to accept it. Like, I'm not a meal prepper. Meal prepping was not a strategy that was sustainable for me, right? That wasn't going to happen. Or you put together a new fitness routine. You're like, I'm going to, do yoga every day. And then it doesn't happen. And then you stop. All right. We don't have that option inside IEPs. At least most people don't think we do. Okay. To stop and start, or to change things up. A lot of times we overload an IEP with everything that we can think of to prepare this child for further education, employment, independent living. And we're not prioritizing what could get done that would create a domino effect. What would be sustainable? If we work on this, then naturally these three things will be happening. Therefore, we can have this goal and focus on this area. And, the teacher or the therapist, and of course the child, right, can show up and give their all to the bigger picture goals, which then makes it more sustainable because we've got a focus that is creating a domino effect. So you see progress at a whole new level. Knowing what to take out of an IEP that still allows the IEP to be appropriate, to meet a child's unique needs, to prepare a child for further education, employment, and independent living is a huge skill. It's something that I highly encourage you to lean in on. We talk about this all the time inside of our Master IP Coach mentorship of what is really important inside of this document that's going to have the biggest impact. Because if we're building IEPs and we're just stuffing a lot of things in there just because this sounds good, this should work. This happens a lot of times in the accommodations and modifications section where we're just checking all the boxes of like, well, let's give the child this and this and this and this and all of these list of things. It's not sustainable because technically we're supposed to be doing all of those things all the time. It's not something that's optional. It's something that should be done, but it's not sustainable. So then it becomes something that doesn't happen all the time. And then we have conflict because things aren't being implemented when really, if we would have stepped back and said, what are the highest priority things that need to happen in order for the child to access their education to create this progress, then we would have been able to implement it with fidelity. We would have been able to have compliance. We would have been doing this all the time. And then when we do this all the time, then we see the progress. We're able to take the data. All the time inside the Master IP Coach Mentorship, we're talking about data. Let's get the data before we make any decisions. We need to make sure we know the numbers. We need to see the progress. It gets to be a really touchy situation when a parent is requesting data and the school doesn't have any of the data. Here's the thing. Now, remember, I was a teacher very, 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 very long time ago, but I can remember taking data. And I've been helping parents and teachers build IEPs that are sustainable. They work for many decades. And a lot of this comes down to being able to have the right data. If we have an IEP that is not sustainable, part of that would be we have so much that we're supposed to be tracking that we can't even do all the tracking. So when we don't have those numbers, many times it's not because somebody wasn't doing their job. It's because they were doing so much of their job in so many different places, all the different times, they couldn't even track what they were doing. And I know that you've felt that way before. Just as a human being, you have so many different things going on. It's almost like people ask you, what did you do today? You're like, I don't know. I did so much that I don't even know what I did. And I'm not saying that that's an excuse not to have the data. That's an excuse not to be working on some of the IEP goals. That's an excuse. No, but it is reality that we only have so many hours in the day. We only have so much time. The child's with a certified teacher. We only have so much time for direct instruction. We only have so much time. And we have to use our time wisely. We have to figure that out. So if you're feeling this exhaustion, not just the regular end of the year exhaustion, but the kind of exhaustion where you're like, I don't know what happened this school year, but that can't happen again because I can't keep track of everything. I can't keep going at this pace. I can't make this work. I'm going to encourage you to think about what could you actually subtract that would multiply the results because you were focused on the right things, on the bigger things. If you need help going through that process, I would love to work with you this summer. You can go over to masteriepcoach.com and see all the things that are happening. And if you have questions about this, I just want to say, you are not alone. You are absolutely not alone. You can send me an Instagram DM. We can chat about this a bit, but I'm seeing it everywhere. I work with parents, teachers, admins, and therapists nationwide. I'm feeling this so heavy this school year. People saying we got to do things differently next year, but you're not quite sure what different means. And a lot of times that means actually stripping things back and saying, okay, what do we really need? And how are we going to put the highest priorities at the top so other things can fall into place? I'll see you guys next time on the Special Education Inner Circle podcast.